Come from deep there, he likes to run from there. But no, he's shot it at the angle. Obviously, the Saints coach Sean McRae had him out there wide, just for that eventuality.
Big time. I said, forget the ticking, just have a go at these guys. That's rugby at its best. Now this is brilliantly set up by the North Harbour boys. Quick hands, the cut-out pass there from Eric. He shows a little dummy. Jan Evans goes wide, and that's 5 points. Thank you very much, Apollo Perelini. But this guy did well. He looked for Ant Storm on the inside and got cut down brilliantly by Darby Morris. But the boys were there. Look. Nice controlled ball. It comes back on a plate. Graham Dowd has a bit of a run, runs into a few meatheads like Wade Dooley, and the ball goes wide again. 1, 2, 3, 4 passes. And thank you very much. I'll take a try. Great.
Bobby Goulding. Perelini going for the line. Perelini, the giant Western Samoan, accepted the pass of Bobby Goulding. All smiles from Bobby Goulding, the winners of the 1996 Silk Cup Challenge Cup.
Desperate defence, Tollett was there, Shaw was there. Quick play the ball, the Broncos could be stretched. Hammond to Prescott. They've got Joey Hay standing in the edge of the space out wide. Perelini. Oh, that strength personified from Apollo Perelini. They hung off him and Perelini went for broke and came up with a try. But what a mistake from Greg Barwick, and how have St Helens punished them?
They paid the price, spilled the football. Long ball out wide. It didn't look as though it was good from Hammond, but then it was good work by Gibbs and the big fella. Good step, and look at the strength there. Tremendous power there from Perelini. This is the incident. It was a good tackle by Hammond. Gibbs picked it up. Long ball out wide. When the man gets it, Prescott feeds on, and look at that step. Any three-quarter would be proud of that. That is a great try.
He is in sensational form, isn't he?
Hello everybody, good evening from Calcutta. Welcome to the second edition of Bengal Rugby Union's On the Bench, where we're interviewing and chatting to well-known rugby players from around the world. Today we've got Apollo Perelini, who is perhaps most famous in his playing career as a Samoa international. Hello, Apollo, there you are. Hello from Calcutta. How's Dubai?
Yeah, good. A little bit warmer. I mean, it's quite hot here, and it's up and it's. I think it's about 41 degrees here. It's quite hot and humid.
We saw some great highlights there. I'm not sure you've seen many of those matches for a few years. A try for North Harbour against the British and Irish Lions. That must test the memory banks a little bit.
That was 92, I think, or 93. That
wow.
was I remember that British and Irish Lions when they toured there, and yeah, it was a long time ago. A lot of people who are watching now probably weren't born then.
which is really where I'm going to come to start, where I start our conversation. I've been looking through Google, checking a little bit about, trying to find out any interesting facts. Of course, there's one fact that just keeps coming up, Apollo, and that's the headline. It's not actually a headline from 1991, but it's a headline about a story that was written about 1991. So I'm going to ask you to explain what on earth this headline means. So the headline is Apollo Mission wrecks Wales 1991 World Cup. What's that all about, Apollo?
Well, I mean, it was a 91 World Cup. I was playing for Samoa. I was playing for my country of origin, and although I grew up in New Zealand, playing rugby for different teams in New Zealand, but I decided to play for Samoa in the internationals, and we got invited to be part of the team for the World Cup, and so we went to the UK for the 91 World Cup, and we were based in Wales, and then we played Wales as our first opening game, and Samoans
co-host, perhaps one of the favourites at home, 1990 Wales team.
They were good. They were a good team, and playing at home in the Carter Farms Park. Now, when I was growing up, Carter Farms Park was the pinnacle of rugby, in Wales, and for a lot of test players. And when I got there, and look, no one knew about Samoa. But what they didn't know is that Samoans are very, very hard tacklers. And when I was in my school days, I was known for my tackling, and I like a bit of tackling, and so in that game, one of the lineouts, I took out a guy called Phil May and dislocated his shoulder, and it was an accident, of course. It was just a hard tackle, and then halfway through the game, I took out Andrew Clement, who was the fullback for Wales, and he came into the line, and I hit him right in the ribs, and he got taken off 5 minutes later because of bruised ribs. And then I tackled another guy, a guy who was marking me, actually. I forgot his name now. And anyway, I broke his wrist, so by accident, and so the headline said, that I was the Terminator. I'd come in and terminated the whole Welsh team on that day. A friend of mine who played for Wales and played on that day, a guy called Scott Gibbs, and he said after that game, and he went back into the changing rooms, he said there were more bodies that he's never seen the Welsh team, so battered and bruised than ever before until then. So it was a physical match.
There were some great headlines after. One of the witty kind of, because at the time Samoa played as Western Samoa, and there was one of the headlines that said, if that was Western Samoa, imagine if we had to play the whole of the country.
The whole of Samoa, yeah, because before then Samoa was called Western Samoa, and then they changed it just to Samoa. But what's his name? Voice, the guy who sings.
Yeah,
he made that quote.
Max Voice.
Max Voice. It was lovely, awesome.
So this was back in the amateur days of rugby. I mean, there weren't professional players. It was I watched a few of the videos of that '91 World Cup. In fact, one of your next games, which was in Pontypridd, I think, against Argentina, there was just one kind of Rugby World Cup cloth banner dangling from the stands. It was true amateur rugby back then.
Yeah, it was very amateur, you know. And I mean, if you think about it, we all worked. We all had to take time off work and leave without pay. It's funny, you know, those days. I mean, to go to the World Cup, it was for everybody that went to the World Cup. It was leave without pay, and I was talking about it with my wife not long ago. I said, back then there was no social media, and what inspired us the most was that we used to get faxes all the way from Samoa, build up to the game. Throughout the whole time we're in the World Cup, our whole meeting room in the hotel was covered with faxes with pieces of paper. And I was a duty boy, and part of my duty for one of the days is that I had to get all the faxes and put them on the wall. And it took me an hour, you know, just putting every single fax I used to cover the wall. Yeah.
Most of the people listening don't know what a fax is, Apollo.
A fax is like a printout of the message. A fax is a printout of the message. You never got anything. There's no emails, no social media. Unbelievable. And then all the photos that I took, and I remember this. Listen to this. And I used to take a photo, and then it was changing the film. You know? And then I used to have a Kodak photo camera, and I had a box of films in my bag, and so that I was taking photos and memories of the World Cup, and then after that unloading the film. And then when I got back home to New Zealand, it's developing all that film. You know, that's the only time you actually got to see what you took, you know, what photos you took. It could be random, but it was unreal. It was crazy. When I think now, you pick up.
How old were you then, Apollo? How old were you in '91? What, 20?
21.
21. Amazing, huh?
Yeah.
Incredible, huh? Is that the first time out of New Zealand?
No. We've been. I travelled the world with other touring teams.
Yeah, and you played New Zealand under 21s at some point.
Yeah, played New Zealand under 21s, and then we toured Australia. But after that, came back, and then I toured with the Barbarians team to France and UK. So that was my first experience of traveling. I was only 19, 20. 20 years of age. It was a great experience, you know. And that's the only reason why you play rugby, is for those experiences. You never played for money. Money never even featured. It wasn't part of your motivation to become a rugby player. Becoming a rugby player for me was just the camaraderie, the friendship, the games, the fun of it, and the travel, you know, and just the traveling, and that was probably my highlight of playing rugby back then before it became professional.
So how did you start out? So you're born, brought up in Auckland, rugby playing family, always was going to be a rugby player?
No, absolutely not. No, well, my family was very, you know, I'm the youngest of 8 kids.
Wow.
And 4 boys, 4 girls. And my dad moved us all I was born in Samoa, and then Dad moved us over from Samoa to New Zealand just for a better life. And I went to school in New Zealand, went through primary school, middle school, and high school, and played rugby during school years, and played all representative teams, and captain first 15. And the funny thing when you talk about a rugby family, my family didn't care about my rugby. My dad didn't care about my rugby. And I remember I was captain of first 15, and we had a massive game at Eden Park, big game. And we needed to be there. I think the kickoff was around about 12:30, and we needed to be there, you know, a meeting at the school, catching a bus down to Eden Park. But I got up that morning, and my dad said, where are you going? I said, well, I'm going to go to the game. You know, I'm the captain. It's one of the biggest games of the first 15. And Dad said, well, you're not going anywhere until you've finished mowing the lawns. Our lawn at home is massive. You know, it's almost like 3 tennis courts. The size of our lawn was like 3 or 4 tennis courts. So I had to mow the lawns before I even could get out of there. So, I mean, you think about the way we grew up, you know, we had chores to do before we can even go and do our sports. And that's basically that. Our culture wasn't about rugby. It wasn't about sports. It was about family and work and education. Yeah.
Great days, Apollo. Great days, huh? So 91 World Cup. It probably ranks in the sort of top 10 of Rugby World Cup upsets ever. You know, if you think of Japan beating South Africa, it's actually up there in sort of legendary upsets. So it's still you had some some fantastic players. I was just looking back at the team list, and you've got Pat Lam, Frank Bunce, all these names that you kind of legendary, really. Brian Lima, and so what an amazing and you were all younger, or at least the sort of names that I recognise. You were all young guys, absolute young bucks, huh? Yeah,
we were very young. We were actually a very young team, and if you watch the games, and I think this is where my coaching philosophy comes from. And when I think about the way we grew up. Look, there's never a wrong way of doing something, you know, and there's always a better way. But expressing yourself on the rugby field is the best thing ever. And in Samoa and that World Cup, we beat Wales first game. Our second game was against Australia, who won the World Cup.
Yes.
We lost 9-3. And there was no tries scored in that game. Australia got 3 penalties and we got 1 penalty. And that's how, you know, and they went on to win the World Cup, Australia, on that same tournament. And then we played Argentina the following week in the quarterfinals, and we beat Argentina.
Thrashed them, huh? I watched that. I watched the highlights of that game.
Yeah. And then we played Scotland at Murrayfield, and you know what? It was packed. You know, I've never seen such a big stadium that full. You know, that was a great experience for me. But, you know, there must have been about 10 Samoans in the crowd. But the Scotland said, we can't play their game. We have to play our game. And they played a really, really tight game. They just kept it in the forwards and they just drove and drove and drove. That's how they played. Whereas we were still, you know, playing an open game. You know, we'd pass the ball. You know, the ball travel across the field. Just forwards and backs shared the same skill sets.
Absolutely, and it's one of the things I noticed watching those games back, just the highlights.
Yeah.
Is actually the Samoa game is probably closer to a modern game than any of the teams that were. You know, I watched the Welsh. They're still sort of, the forwards are kind of charging after the ball this way, charging after the ball that way.
Yes.
They're just kind of like these demented kind of chickens running backwards and forwards across the field. Where Samoa had this style that is very close to what a modern, how you'd set yourself up in a modern game. Yeah,
because if you think back then, well, you know, the nature of the game is that when the ball goes that way, all the forwards trying to it.
But that's how I learned rugby. I mean,
yeah, and then when the ball goes that way, all the forwards trying to, and the backs then realign. Well, Samoa, you know, I remember, and there was me, Pat, and you know, your junior paramours, and that. If the ball went over there, I had the confidence that I could be a centre.
Yeah.
I just thought, you know, we stayed in the backs, and even our tight forwards, like our props, they weren't afraid of standing out in the middle of the park, pretending they've got 13 on their back. And I think that was the nature of the game, of the Samoan game, was that everybody's a rugby player, so just be prepared to play anywhere. And you know, the only time that you are in a fixed position is line-outs, scrums, and kickoffs, you know, in your set pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. So 91 World Cup success, not ultimate success, but two big scalps. So where does the story go from there, Apollo? Your playing career.
Yeah, went back to New Zealand. I was playing for North Harbour. Went back. I was in Auckland and just couldn't break into the Auckland team because the Auckland team there was 15 All Blacks in the Auckland team. and yeah, you're queuing up in the Auckland team, and so I went across the bridge, which is just next door. It's the neighbouring province called North Harbour, and played for them. Now, during the 91 World Cup, a lot of us had rugby league people watching us. You know, you're in the UK, you're in England, you're travelling around in Wales, and this, you know, you had all these rugby league clubs who were professional clubs. Now, rugby union was still amateur. There was no money being handed out in rugby union, but rugby league had all the checks. You know, they were walking around with their checkbooks, looking at all the Pacific Island teams. They were looking at, you know, I think it was ourselves. I'm not sure if Tonga was in it. No, Tonga wasn't in it.
Tonga were there, weren't they? Weren't Tonga in?
No, I don't think Tonga was. I think it was only us and Fiji. And so they were looking at us, thinking, these guys can hit hard, they can run hard, and they've got ball skills. And so a lot of the boys had rugby league clubs kind of sort of hovering around during the 91 World Cup. So when I was back in New Zealand, a couple of mates of mine, Inga Tuingamala, signed for Wigan. And then about 6 months after that, I got an offer from St. Helens to, if I was interested in trading codes and going to the other side of the other side of the road and play rugby league. And you know, look, people say, did you go for the money or did you go for the challenge? Look, I went for the money. You know, I put in my mind that, look, it will be a challenge. It may be difficult. I might come back and I might not enjoy it. But my aim is that, you know, I'm going to go there and give it a go. And
So when did you end up back in the UK or in the UK? In
94.
94.
1994.
Welcome to Liverpool.
Hey, Liverpool was one of my favourite football teams. So moving to St. Helens wasn't too bad. It was great. Look, when I moved over there, you know, and I thought, oh my gosh, I've come to Coronation Street. If no one knows what Coronation Street is. Anyway,
I know what Coronation Street is.
but coming to the UK was just surreal because, you know, you watch a lot of UK programs. New Zealand was the best of all the television we ever got in New Zealand was the best of UK and the best of America. And so all the UK TV series that used to show, it was like walking into a TV set. And I was like, this is just like what we watch at home. You know, it's just weird. You know, you got these terrace houses, you're semi-detached.
Where did you live when you went there? Where did you
I lived in St. Helens.
In St. Helens.
St. Helens, which is only about 30 minutes from Manchester and 20 minutes to Liverpool. So it kind of sits in between Liverpool and Manchester. A nice little rugby league town, famous for rugby league.
Absolutely. So I'm from, I think I've told you in this past, but I'm from Chester. So I kind of know.
You're from the posh side. You're the posh side.
Obviously. I mean, that's not exactly where I grew up. Wasn't exactly the posh side, but yeah, I'll take it. Posh. That's me. Posh.
Oh, Chester's beautiful. Again, you know, there are parts of the UK that I really, really love, and we still go back. I still go back home. Well, when I say home, because there's, you know, I've lived there. For 17 years, you know.
Yeah, you ended up living for 17 years, huh?
Yeah. So you know, yeah. So you know, it was amazing time and in the UK. Still have properties there, and we still gravitate to the UK. We've still got a lot of friends in the UK that helped us to settle. And playing rugby league, and people, and you'll hear the story from a lot of people who make the switch. Was the hardest thing I've ever done. Hardest thing. It was the toughest. I thought I quit rugby and joined and went to hell. There was times where that I found myself praying while I was training. I was praying, I was praying, oh dear Lord, just help me out, get me through this training. You know? And this is coming from, I was an open side flanker in rugby union. I was fit, I was fast, and I was strong. Well, I thought I was, until I got to rugby league in the UK and found that my fitness was at the bottom compared to the rugby league players, where it was just another world. And I signed with a guy called Scott Gibbs, who we signed together, and both of us we stayed in a hotel together for the first 3 weeks, and after every session we'll come back to the hotel going, what in the world are we doing here? This is crazy. I've never trained so hard in my life. That whole transition to rugby league was amazing, because I became fitter, became stronger. I remember I was full-time. We were doing weights pretty much every day. I was running, I was cycling, you know, I was doing hill runs. There was conditioning all the time. So that was totally different from the life as an amateur rugby union.
As an amateur?
Yeah, it was totally different. And it took me probably about 2 months to get used to the whole regime of having to train every single day. We got some days off, but you know, the training was so, the intensity of training was so high that, you know, it just blew my mind. But, you know, that was a learning curve for me, and a really, really big, steep learning curve. And it was probably the greatest experience I've ever had. And it changed my whole mindset. And these guys...
I'm glad you love living in the Northwest. I still go back to see my mum, and I probably lived there the same length of time. I ran away when I was 17, so we both did 17 years. You know, they say, what do they say? Murderers get less. But...
That's true. That's true. But,
so Apollo, we're going to change the tempo here. You have to focus, huh? Really.
Yep, absolutely.
We're going to go into kind of 10 quick-fire sort of rugby-related questions. They're very simple. Just don't think about the answer. They're very just get straight off the top of your head, whatever comes off the top of your head. So first question, go. This should be an easy one to start you going. Forwards or backs?
Forwards. Great.
Best nickname, Terminator or chiropractor?
Terminator.
We'll explain that. People can Google what the chiropractor, who the chiropractor is.
Yeah.
Coaching or playing?
Coaching.
Right. Running or gym?
Gym.
Favorite sports brand?
Adidas.
Blues or the Sharks?
Blues.
Super Rugby or Premiership?
Super Rugby.
Favorite player from any era, any code?
Michael Jones.
Who?
Michael Jones.
Oh, okay. Brilliant. Most unusual place to have played or coached?
Unusual place. Played in Batley.
Batley. What's that, on the side of a hill or something?
Yeah. You played uphill first half, you played downhill second half.
You get changed in your car. If you've got a car. Or if not, there's a bus stop just up the road where you can get changed. I've been there.
Brilliant.
Okay, so we go on to the sort of last of the 10. Best coach, who you've seen is be your favourite coach?
My favourite coach is that I've been coached under.
Yeah, or that you kind of, who would you be your role model?
There's a guy called Ellery Hanley. He's a rugby league coach, and do you want me to explain the reason why?
Yeah, go on. We're going to talk a bit about coaching, so let's tell us. Yeah, that's I know who he is, but go on.
Yeah, Ellery Hanley. He's one of the great rugby league players, and he became a coach, and he coached me, and for 2 years, sorry, for 1.5 years, and I learned more in that 1.5 years than I've ever had. And it's probably, it changed my mindset in the way that it gave me the philosophy that I have, and it's all about players. And coaches are all about players. And if you can't, if you can't get your players doing what you want them to do, it's because you don't care enough. You don't care enough about the players.
Yeah, players. That sort of idea of player-centric, players first.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
and what would you say if I was going to ask you what your coaching philosophy is, what would it involve that? Would that be part of it? Yeah,
and look, I'm an implicit coach. I'm all about skills and teaching the skills, and so making sure that coaches, that kids and players have the skills in order to perform. And if you don't perform something if you don't have it. And so, and sort of, I like them to make mistakes in order for them to learn. So rather than me having to correct them all the time, I want them to find out. Self-discovery. It's all about, being implicit is about them going through it and letting them and asking them questions about how did you find it, what do you find difficult, how do you think you're going to fix it, and that's the key, because you're not on the field when they're performing, and I think a lot of what happens is when everything's too directive and everything's just do this, do that, do this, do this. When it comes to actually playing and they go out of that box, they don't know what to do. They get lost. And, this was Samoa. Yeah, this was the 91 World Cup Western Samoan team that went there. We had a game plan, and that was scrum, try and win the scrum, try and win the line-out ball, and the rest play rugby. And we didn't have a strategic plan. When I think back, because often people say to me, what game plan did you have for Samoa? And I said, we didn't. Score. Our game plan was go forward and get that ball over the line. There was no other, you didn't have to think too much. There was no proper structure. We just had, okay, because everybody was balanced. Everybody, we knew the backs were talented. It didn't matter who the ball went to in the backs. We knew that they were going to do something. And we also knew that us forwards, we were going to be rubbish at scrum time. We're going to be rubbish at line-outs. But I tell you what, get the ball in our hands, we're going to create something out of nothing. And that's where I see, and I think sometimes we overcomplicate the game of rugby, and we overcoach kids. We really overcoach kids and players. So my coaching philosophy is, look, the people should be able to learn through their mistakes, and then you fix that mistake. Yeah. You help them reach to that conclusion. The start, but you also know the finish. But let them do all the work in the middle to achieve that outcome. And I always say things are processes. The other week, and somebody would ask me, he said, how Super Rugby is all about taking risks. And I said, well, there's no such thing as taking risks as far as I'm concerned. I said risks is a word for pessimists. Risk is a word that pessimists use because they're afraid to try, and afraid because they might make a mistake. An optimist, use it. It's a process. So if you coach what people call as a risk, I call it a process. So it's important that when you're coaching skills, you coach every single outcome. Every skill is possible. That's why when sometimes kids in our academy, I teach them how to throw the ball back over their shoulders, under, through their legs, as part of a relay, a game. I might say, okay, every second pass got to go through the legs, and then coaches go, well, you're teaching them bad habits. And I said, why? What's a bad habit? What's a good habit? I said, if this happened in a game and you score from it, are you going to say that's the worst thing you've ever done? So, and that's the philosophy I have, is that, you give it a go. And the kids that I coach, and every player that I coach, know that, I open the parameters for trying things.
I think you have to have a certain amount of confidence to do that as well.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
have to be confident that that the youngsters, the players are interested to learn. They want to challenge themselves. And as a coach, you have to be confident to let the team just sort of get on with it sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is. And confidence comes from learning the skills. And I said, look, it's when you teach skills and you teach them all the fundamentals. It's like reading. I said, you're adding to their vocabulary. The vocabulary of skills. The more you put in there, the more they use when they go to play. Because
Watching that Super 15 game today was interesting, or not Super 15, but the Super Rugby game, because one of the commentators made a comment about, in the last so many seasons there'd hardly been a drop goal, and of course they've introduced this: if there's a tie, then there's a sudden death. So, and he said, I bet you everybody has been practicing the drop goal in their training. Huh? So it's about, even at the highest level, the skills never stop. Huh?
No, and the thing is, you never stop learning. I mean, if you watch, and the Michael Jordan, documentary, you learn a lot from just that documentary alone, just on mindset, learning skills. He never stopped practicing. People say, "Well, he was the greatest player in the world," but it wasn't through because he's just talented. It was talent plus hard work. And that's the problem. I always say to kids, listen, the hardest worker will always get the reward, not always the most talented. And I've seen, and a lot of my friends, it's funny, through social media, meeting up with a lot of my friends that I went to school with. There are guys on my social media group. I mean, we have a WhatsApp group of all my mates when we were in high school that were better than me. They were better than myself and Tungamala. They were better, some of the best rugby players that I've ever seen in my life. But they were talented, but just didn't have the desire. They didn't have the hard work, didn't have the work ethic. They just dropped out of rugby at the age of 19, 20. So
I'm a big believer in putting some kind of structure in place into developing them skills. We were talking earlier about goals. So it's not just about having this kind of free-flowing attitude. It's about having a structure to work on those goals, I think, isn't it? Yeah,
and I think at the end of the day, somebody's got to want it. And I said, look, you've got to have that desire, and in order, and to set goals, you got to have a vision. If I want to make the All Blacks, and then my goal is to make, in order to make the All Blacks, I need to make our ITM Auckland team. I need to make the Blues Super Rugby team to even get a look into to be in the All Blacks. And then what are the steps to getting there? Well, I need to be probably the best tackler and the best, jackler, as a loose forward. So then what are the tasks to achieve all that? I need to practice my tackling 3 times a week. I need to practice my jackling 4 times or 5 times a week. I need to get into the gym and work different muscle groups that enables me to be in that position to make me stronger in that in those skills. So but going back to people with talent and having that desire to set goals, you've got to have that desire to want to achieve those. It's no good putting a goal. I've seen players say, "Oh, this is my goal," and then walk away. And then go, "Oh yeah, it's my goal," and it's all it is. They're just writing it up, and it was. And I say to kids, look, if you got a goal, write it. Richie McCaw is, when you watch the documentary, well, his documentary, Richie McCaw, what you'll get out of Richie, that he wasn't the most talented player, and even Steve Henson said, by no means he wasn't the most talented player by no stretch of imagination, but he was the hardest worker. He had the biggest desire. And you could see that, that he just wanted it more, and he wrote his goals. He had, not only did he have long-term 5-10-year goals, he had yearly goals, but he also had game day goals, and that was the most important thing. And I showed that to some of the kids that I coached, and they said, is that Richie McCaw had game day goals. He actually wrote down what he wanted to achieve on that day. on that game, you know. And I think that's the key for kids, you know, if they really desire to want to do it, you know, they got to write things down and then they, you know, follow through.
Nice, nice. That's good advice, isn't it? You know, about how to be organised, how to plan and prepare. Nice, nice. So, for you, Apollo, what would you're still a young man, but you know, so far in your coaching career, what's been the highlight?
Yeah, it's funny because when I went to coaching, I retired in 2003. I went back to South Sharks. So, you know, the story goes on. I went from rugby league and went to St. Helens. And then in 2000, I decided that I'll go back and play rugby union. I just thought I might as well finish off my career in the game that I started on. And so I signed with South Sharks, a 3-year contract, 4-year contract. But I decided to end it up early. I kind of played till 2003 and then just said, I'm tired. You know, one day people always say, how do you know when to retire? I said, you just know when you know. you know. And one day I was just driving to training and there'd been an accident on the road, on the motorway on the M62 to South Sharks. And I just made up my mind saying, that's it, I'm done. I'm just done. And I stopped playing and I went into coaching. And then I worked at Sale for about 6 months and then got an offer to move back to St. Helens as a coach, head of training. And so I oversee the strength and conditioning side and the skills work. So I went back to coaching for St. Helens. Coached there till 2008, and then I moved to Dubai. But I've always loved coaching. I've always loved mentoring. Coaching is a form of mentoring, and I think this is where a lot of people kind of lose sight of what the responsibilities are as a coach. And I think that coaching is just to go there and coach them, to instruct and to teach them a certain system, you know, coaching. But whereas coaching is all about relationships. It's about knowing your team, you know, and knowing the players within your care. And it's like with anything, if you don't know your players or you don't know the people that are under you, how then can you get them to perform for you? And so, you know, the lessons that I've had in life is that, you know, always look after the people in your care. And anybody that comes under my coaching regime, they're under my care. And that's the thing, that's the word. And it's making sure that if they succeed, you win.
Yeah, of course. I think that's a great philosophy.
Yeah, and if they succeed, you win. You get the accolade. Well done, Apollo. Yeah. Look at this great player you've developed. You know, and that's the satisfaction I get from coaching, is developing.
I have to say, I just make a comment on what I think was your greatest achievement, which of course is a young British guy. One of the things that I always was in. So the big institution in the UK is the BBC, and it was great. You were actually part of the St. Helens team that won the BBC Sports Team of the Year back in 2006 or something.
Yeah, 2006.
And that's like, for me, that's a great thing. That's better than any cups. That's like everybody in the country used to watch that program. So well done for that.
Yeah. So Paul, and that's my thought on any coach, is that, you know, you're not just a coach, you're a mentor. You got to look after these. You got to look after these players. You got to try and make sure that they come through this. You know, they get the best possible. They get the best of you. In order for them to get the best, you know, to be the best and to develop into the best, they need the best of you. And that's where I've always believed, you know, that I've got to give my best over to those players in order for them to achieve and to be successful. And that's always been my drive. And hence the reason why I started a rugby academy. And people say, well, why did you start a rugby academy? I said, because I wanted to make kids better.
Yeah.
I said, it is a business. People say, well, it's a business. I said, yeah, but the rewards the same for the kid as it is for me. The kid improves, I get happy. I'm a happy coach when I see kids improve. And the best comments that I've had from parents and kids is that they've changed, you know. And I think there's a lot of people think you coach kids to not just improve them, but you coach them to change them into give them life skills that they will carry on as adults, you know, values, give them values. You know, we have values, rugby has values, but I have values as well. And when you the way you coach is the way that the kids will, you know, feel loved, cared, and respected. You know, and I'm not a shouting coach. I don't shout. You know, I have a loud voice. People go, "Are you shouting?" I said, "No, I just have a loud voice." It's like a foghorn. But you know, in coaching, when you're coaching kids, and you're not supposed to be intimidating. You're not supposed to scare them into doing something that you want them to do. And you give them that. You create an environment that they want to learn and have fun doing it. And that's the best thing.
I think that's brilliant, Apollo. I really, you know, respect what those ideas and those values. I think that's what every coach needs to kind of live up to those ideals, because it's all about, especially with children, it's about them having a nice time, being safe, being motivated. And you can only do that if you understand the children, you talk to them, you ask them questions, you kind of mentor them. It's really important.
Yeah, and you know, and it's funny because it's good that you mentioned that. But I make it and make an effort to listen to them.
Very important.
Kids love it when you listen to them. You know, and I think anybody likes to be listened to. and when especially in training, and a kid makes a suggestion, and you're like going, "I like that. Keep that, because I like it, because I think we can do something with it." And when you say that, they get excited, thinking, "Okay, he's going to take on my idea." But you're getting them to think about it.
It can be difficult as an adult to kind of just take that. You want to show that you know everything, you understand everything, and it's really important that we listen. Really important.
Yeah, it is important that you. And that's another sign of caring. That's another sign of caring, and if you create that culture where kids find it, look, I think the environment that you create and the culture you create an environment where kids are not afraid to ask questions and not afraid to say something. And I think what happens in a lot of coaching, kids are afraid to say something because that culture isn't there. You know, they don't feel comfortable because they've seen somebody else speak up and the coach turn around and go, "Be quiet. You don't know anything. You're a kid." You know, whereas we create an environment where we say, "What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think?" And when you create that environment, then kids are not afraid to ask or to say something, you know, and you've got to be the one that has the answers for them. You know, and the thing is, kids will go home with a lot of questions in their head, but they never get the chance to ask it because coaches dominate. They dominate that environment. They dominate because it's a coaches led session. And I guess that's what frustrates me a lot, you know, where, you know, sometimes when I see coaches coaching and I'm on the sideline watching kids and I see coaches, the way they behave, and I'm thinking, that guy should not be anywhere near a rugby field.
Nice. So Apollo, we're going to up the just as we're kind of reaching towards the end, last little bit, we're going to up the momentum, and we're going to do a quick last little quick fire round.
Yep.
It's nothing to do with rugby. So you ready? You ready, Apollo? You ready? Where's my camera? I'm trying to point. I can't find it.
Bring it
I'm pointing over here, but it's here. So quick first question: Dubai or Manchester?
Dubai.
Oh no, Apollo! What are you saying?
I love it. Yeah.
Favorite holiday destination?
US.
US. Nice. Beach or mountains?
Beach.
Beach. Good. So you have to watch what you say here. Curry or steak?
Oh, curry. A nice curry.
Tea or coffee?
Look, the reason why I'm like this, I'm torn because coffee, I have coffee in the morning and then tea in the afternoons.
Okay, you can have both. You can have both. Let you have both. Favorite movie, and do you have a favorite rugby movie? There's not many, but do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite rugby movie? Can you even think of one?
Rugby movies.
Favorite sports movie then?
Hey, favorite movie, I tell you what, people will probably laugh. Sound of Music, mate.
Sound of Music, lovely.
Get Sound of Music on.
Do Re Mi.
Do Re Mi. Lasso Lati.
Best airline to fly on?
Emirates,
great. Late nights or early mornings?
Early mornings.
Early mornings, good. And what was the last book you read?
Bounce. Oh no, sorry. Everything Store by it's the Jeff Bezos story.
Okay, yeah. Bounce is great though. Very good book. Huh?
Bounce, brilliant, lovely, awesome book. Got it right here. Yeah. Look, I made notes in.
I've got it. It's there. It's up there somewhere.
I can see it. Yeah.
I got my camera right this time.
No, there's one thing that I started doing, and I'll tell you. In 2020 was a change of mindset. I've never read a full book in my whole life. I tell you, I probably one ever. In 2020, I decided I was going to read 36 books in a year, and I've done 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 books since January the 6th. I've done 12 books, so I try and read as many times as I can.
Great. I'm just thinking. I've got the by the same guy. You're Awesome. So it's by Matthew Said, the guy who wrote Bounce, and it's a book for children actually. So it's the same kind of ideas. Yeah, exactly. So it's the same ideas in for children.
Yeah. Black box thinking is a good one too.
Yeah.
Take some notes.
The ping pong, what he's known as the ping pong guy.
Yes. I love books. You know what? And when people who know me, when I say I've been reading, they go, "Are you sure?"
So let's finish off. So you've given us some great advice for young players about how they should set goals, how they should, focus on their skills. So, but let's think about so we're thinking about those children's future, but now what's the future for Apollo? You have a rugby academy in Dubai, you're coach of the UAE team, I guess nicely settled and enjoying life in Dubai. So what's the future for you, Apollo?
Well, we're going to stay here. I'm still doing some stuff for UAE rugby. Still trying to get the game more developed within the local community, the Arabs, and then work. And then for the academy, we're growing it, and we since COVID we've had change of mindset, and so we're going to look at changing our programs in order to try and be more global about our program, rather than just Dubai. To watch this space.
Nice.
And there's a lot of things that I want to do. There's a lot of, again, with yourselves and Jungle Crow and what you guys do in India and Calcutta. I love that stuff. I really do, and I want to be involved. and I want to be part of that. And when I last spoke to some of your coaches, I was inspired by them because, you know, these kids actually still go to university and you know, and then come home and then still have to tend to their little groups, you know, and no, that's the challenges that they go through, the challenges of families and parents, you know. It's very similar. The challenges you guys have is similar to the challenges that locals have here. The kids want to play rugby, but the parents don't want them to play. It's that generation. But I get it because my dad didn't want me to play when I was a kid. You know, they didn't follow my games. The first game my dad went to when I was playing was when I was playing for New Zealand under 21s. That's how long he waited to watch a game.
He waited for a good one though.
He wasn't. Again, sport wasn't going to provide food on the table. That's what it was, and I get it, and that's what some of these. This is how some parents think. But yeah, so there's a lot of things I want to do. I'm working with corporates where, you know, we'll do some corporate leadership, working with, you know, creating culture within the boardroom and organization, you know, and culture is all about changing behaviors, and that's all it is. It's just behaviors, the way you behave. And so I'm doing a lot more work with corporates on leadership, teamwork, connecting. The same thing we do in coaching.
Yeah, it's the same principles.
Absolutely. Exactly. And I think
except you're not breaking anybody's shoulder.
But it's funny when you talk to the you know, to corporates and you start describing and you start talking about teamwork the way that we know teamwork, you know, about our roles and responsibilities, you know, having a game plan and then staying to that game plan. And it's the same in corporate. And when you talk to them about it and they say, can you teach us? Because I think we've all got different game plans at the moment. Nice. But yeah, there's a lot that I want to do, Paul, and India might see a lot more of me in the future.
Well, we hope so. We'd love to see you here, Apollo. You know, I've got massive respect for you. You're like sort of one of my heroes. I've been really lucky. I've done sort of 2 of these interviews, and both times I've been really lucky to chat to people I really admire and respect. So I think we'll end there, Apollo. We've taken up enough of your time. It's starting to get like dark here in Calcutta. So it's been really nice chatting to you. Thank you ever so much for your time. Thank you for the support. You know, I should say personally, thank you for the support you've given to our young players over the last couple of months. They've really appreciated it. Really enjoyed having that time with you. So Apollo Perelini, 1991 Samoa International rugby coach and all-round legend. Thank you very much, mate. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much for having me, Paul. It was such a pleasure, and it's good to chat, and it's such a casual and inviting environment. And thanks, buddy. I really appreciate it, and we'll see more of each other in the future.
Hope so. Cheers,
Thanks,
Apollo. Thanks, everybody, for listening to On the Bench. And we'll see you in the next edition, I hope. Thanks, everyone.